Let's get right into this review for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Alright, so The Final Reckoning is directed again by Christopher McQuarrie. It goes without saying that Tom and MQ are a force to be reckoned with. They continue to envision some unforgettable stunt sequences for this franchise, and it continues to leave me thoroughly impressed during my viewing of these climactic sequences on the big screen. So right off the bat, kudos to the entire cast behind the scenes. You can tell there's a lot of thought and preparation that went behind the technicals and for the craft of each stunt showcased in this cinematic package. Tom is without a doubt a legend with incredible acting range on screen. He continues to pave a way forward and pushes the boundaries of cinema with his stunts and performances constantly. It's always a marvel to see him perform on the big screen. And I guess really the bottom line for the current praise I'm dishing out is that it's quite evident there was a ton of heart and soul poured into this project from the entire behind the scenes team. And I think it goes without saying that I 1000% recommend watching this film at the theaters, especially at your earliest convenience. This is a cinematic experience worthy of your time if you enjoyed the Mission Impossible series so far, Tom Cruise himself, or are just general fans of spy action flicks. There's undoubtedly a fun time to be had witnessing the cinematic package at the theaters, even with some of its evident flaws in regards to its storytelling. So that brings me into the next question. What did I think about the story here? I thought the story was serviceable, but there were definitely some evident cracks within this huge scale, very ambitious story. So to start off, I do think the main human antagonist this time around wasn't as satisfying to witness in part 2 of this narrative. He did feel a bit dumbed down, and the conclusion to this said character wasn't all too satisfying to witness compared to some of the previous antagonist story arcs showcased in this series. Another flaw is that some of the major story elements do end up dipping down into the B and C tier zone at times. There are several plot holes that do formulate as this big scale story ends up stretching far too wide for its own good at times. And another minor nitpick is that I did feel some of the side characters weren't as fleshed out as well as they could have been in the story. The main obvious focus is Ethan Hunt, more so than ever, but there are some side characters that I felt were a bit wasteful this time around and didn't really do all too much to justify their presence in the story. Lastly, some of the expositions throughout the acts did feel a bit too much on the nose, more so than I would have liked, especially when it came to deducing and figuring out what this AI entity planned on doing next. Sometimes, the dynamic of this super intelligent AI versus the impossible mission force didn't feel all too tense in part 2 of this story, as it felt like the IMF somehow knew exactly what this unpredictable AI was going to do next. I sort of had this gut feeling that the entity was getting nerfed for the sake of keeping the story rolling, which definitely is a negative aspect for sure. But then again, how else are you supposed to make an incredibly impossible mission against an omniscient AI just barely a tad bit possible enough for the legendary Ethan Hunt? My final score for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is 9.5 out of 10. Sure, the story in itself wasn't a 9.5, but all the external factors like the team's passion for the cinematic craft, the top-notch execution of stunts, and Tom being Tom elevates the cinematic experience beyond its B-tier story. And I'm here to report that this potentially final Mission Impossible film continues to be a reliable source of providing fun, yet thrilling spy action flick moments. And honestly, I had myself a blast at the theaters throughout the 2 hour and 51 minute runtime. Sure, this isn't my favorite Mission Impossible film, but it's a worthy addition nonetheless. And again, the stunts and the technical marvels of the production behind the scenes are something else entirely, and that alone demands praise for its innovation and execution. Thanks for checking this review out. I've been looking forward to this one, and I'm glad it lived up to the hype. A lot more cinematic experiences are on the horizon, so stay tuned for more uploads, and I shall see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe out there, and peace.